It feels like we've been watching a pot boil for decades, doesn't it? You look at the headlines this week, and it's no longer just steam rising. The lid has officially blown off. But what strikes me isn't just the violence itself, it's the confusion. It feels like everyone is shouting, but nobody actually knows what kind of war this is.
That's because we're trying to view a 21st century conflict through a 20th century lens. We expect clear battle lines, declared fronts, maybe a defining D-Day moment. But this is entirely different. The escalation between the US and Iran isn't a boxing match. It's 3D chess played in the dark. The war isn't just happening on a battlefield. It's happening in server rooms, in shipping lanes, and through proxies.
Right. And that's the terrifying part. It's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I was reading about the initial strikes, and it struck me how calculated it all seemed. It didn't feel like a chaotic brawl. It felt like a transaction. A very violent, high-stakes transaction.
Exactly. Think of it as kinetic diplomacy. It sounds cold, but that's the reality. In the past, war was the failure of diplomacy. Now, war is just another tool within diplomacy. Iran's strategy has always been asymmetric. They know they can't win a conventional standing fight against the US military machine. Force on force. They lose every time. So, they don't fight that way.
They fight in the gray zone.
Precisely. The gray zone. They use the axis of resistance, their network of militias in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, to create pressure points. It's like a hydra. The US strikes the head, but three more heads bite back from different directions. It makes the concept of victory incredibly murky for Washington. How do you declare victory against a network that is woven into the social fabric of 4 different countries?
That's the dilemma, isn't it? The US has the most advanced technology in history. We're talking stealth bombers, precision missiles, carrier strike groups that cost more than the GDP of small nations. But does that technological edge actually matter when your enemy is a guy with a $500 drone and a laptop?
It matters, but it yields diminishing returns. This is the cost exchange paradox. If the US uses a $2 million missile to shoot down a $2,000 drone, who is actually winning the war of attrition? Economically, the US is bleeding out in that scenario, and Iran knows this. They rely on the fact that the American public has very little appetite for a prolonged, boots-on-the-ground conflict. They are betting on exhaustion, not destruction.
Which brings up the economic angle. We can't talk about this without talking about oil and the Strait of Hormuz. I feel like every time a shot is fired in that region, the whole world holds its breath, waiting to see if the gas prices spike. It's the jugular vein of the global economy.
It is. And that's the nuclear option that doesn't involve actual nuclear weapons. If that strait closes, or even if shipping insurance rates just skyrocket because of the threat, the global economy takes a massive hit. It turns a regional conflict into a global crisis overnight. It's leverage. But here's the twist. It's a double-edged sword. Iran needs those lanes open to sell what oil they can too. So it's a game of chicken where both drivers are blindfolded.
And speaking of blindfolds, let's talk about the intelligence war, the cyber aspect. We hear about the explosions, but we don't see the code. I imagine the cyber front is burning just as hot as the physical one right now.
Oh, absolutely. The first shots of this war were likely fired years ago, silently, in code, targeting infrastructure, power grids, banking systems. It's the invisible layer of modern warfare. It's psychological, too. If you can make the lights go out in a city without dropping a single bomb, you create panic. You erode trust in the government. That's arguably more damaging than a tactical airstrike on a bunker.
It's destabilization as a weapon. But I want to pivot to something deeper. We're talking about Strategy, economics, tech. But what is the endgame here? When you look at the rhetoric from both sides, it feels like two trains on the same track. Is there an off-ramp? Or are we destined for a cycle where this just becomes the new normal?
That's the heavy question. The tragic reality of modern conflict is that endgames are a myth. We used to have peace treaties. Now we have frozen conflicts, or managed instability. The U.S. wants deterrence. They want to hit hard enough to make Iran stop, but not so hard that it triggers a total regional collapse. Iran wants survival and regional dominance. They want to push the U.S. out, but not so fast that they get annihilated.
So it's a balance of terror.
In a way, yes, but it's unstable. All it takes is one miscalculation, one missile hitting a crowded barracks instead of an empty warehouse, one commander going rogue. The systems are rational, but the people operating them are emotional, fearful, and prone to error. That's the human element we forget. We analyze the tanks and the treaties, but at the end of the day, it's fear driving the bus.
That's a haunting thought. We're relying on the rationality of actors who are under immense pressure. It reminds me of that old saying, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. But in this case, it feels like we're blinding ourselves willingly, hoping the other guy blinks first.
And in a room full of smoke and mirrors, it's very hard to tell if the other guy is blinking or preparing to strike.
We're going to have to leave it there for today. It's a heavy topic, but one we can't afford to ignore. The ripples of this conflict touch everything from the price of your commute to the stability of the internet.
Exactly. It's a reminder that in a connected world, there are no distant wars anymore. Everything is local.
Thanks for listening. Keep your eyes open and stay critical of what you read. We'll see you next time.